It's the first podcast of the post-Erol Bulut era, as Erol Bulut was sacked earlier today. Very kindly, the Cardiff City Football Club board, they waited until they knew we were recording, did it about 3 or 4 hours before that, so we could really talk about it. So it was really good timing for all considered, really. All the best, Erol. Have a nice journey home. Joining me, as always, to discuss what's happening with Cardiff City, as usual, Ben Price, Tom Phillips. Ben Price, abuse any referees this weekend?
No comment, Your Honour.
Tom Phillips, abuse any referees this weekend?
No, I'm a good boy. I don't abuse referees.
Ben, do you want to expand on?
I don't abuse qualified referees.
Oh, okay, there we go. That's the caveat there. He will abuse people who are just stepping into referee because, Ben, people like you means that there are a shortage of referees at grassroots level. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never lost my head like that before. I'm not going to go into it, but I lost my head a bit on the game I played on the weekend.
Do you want to tell everyone what you tried to do to the referee with the ball?
I had a chance to kick the ball. Well, there was two choices. There was swing the ball with a good cross into the box to create a chance, or it was make it accidentally look like you can kick the ball at the referee's head. Because I was in a complete head loss, decided to aim for the referee's head and sliced it out for a throw-in in spectacular fashion.
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound like your fortunes were any different, really, to Cardiff City's fortunes this weekend. So, I mean, Erol Bulut has been sacked. That's obviously the big news. We will talk about that in more detail, but we'll start with the Leeds game first, the game that probably got him sacked. Ben, first starting point, really, for this, it was just a poor game of football, wasn't it, from us?
It was dreadful. Really, really poor. You like to think with a game like that, knowing what's at stake with Bulut's job and everything with the players being put on the league, there would be some fight, some impetus, some just change in attack incentive. The formation changed, but nothing else changed. It was bleak.
Tom, Joe Erol started the game with a little bit of fight, but as soon as Bagan's red card happened, the game was over, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it felt over before I even started this game.
Yeah,
there's an odd feeling around Cardiff games at the moment. It's like, you know, when you're in the Premier League and you're playing a team that are much better than you, there was always that little bit of hope. It's weird at the moment. We're going into games already really defeated, and it's. I don't think I've ever felt it this bad with Cardiff. It was. I don't think I've ever been, so glad to be 20,000 kilometers away from Cardiff City Stadium, because if I was back at home, it'd be one of those days where you're thinking, God, I have to go today, rather than wanting to go. And I've never felt, especially playing a team like Leeds, and then the game starts and the players look like they felt exactly the same way, apart from roles. And it was just a sad, sorry affair. And to be honest with you, the red card kind of just gives us an excuse just to go, we lost because of the red card. But the reality is, we arguably could have lost by more if we had 11 men on the field, because they might have tried to get at us a little bit more. It was a limp performance from start to finish, and one that we're pretty used to seeing over the last few weeks.
We'll talk about the Bacon red card, Ben. But first, just regale you with some stats from the game. Our expected goals, 0.12. We had 3 shots on goal all game, 2 of those on target. No big chances, 109 accurate passes. We only completed 53% of our attempted passes, which is pretty bleak.
So we made
10 fouls.
50 passes.
We completed 109. We attempted 220, I think.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah, so we about half. How many corners did we have?
1?
None.
Oh, yeah, none.
I mean, the stats are incredibly bleak across the board. But let's talk about the red card, Ben. What's your take on it? Bit of controversy. Is it a red card? Was the referee playing advantage? I've heard all the opinions. I want to hear yours.
I think if you're looking by the letter of the law and the referee said he's not played advantage, he's waiting to see how it plays out, which in my head is playing an advantage, but they might say different. It's a red card. O'Dowda's not getting across there to cover it. Bagan's made no attempt to play the ball. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 Leeds players within the box, and he can take a shot off as well. So it's a clear goal scoring opportunity. So I can understand from that point. I think the only controversy comes is, did he play advantage? Or did he sort of because he seemed to blow. I've watched it back about 5 times, and I can't tell it because he doesn't do the old-fashioned hands up advantage on.
Yeah, he doesn't wave it on.
No, so he probably didn't play advantage, and by that matter, I think he got it right.
Tom, your take on it?
I warned you about Bargain's murderous streak. We said about this. I can't make my mind up, and I must admit I don't care at the moment.
Okay.
But
Good.
it's one of those one. No, long pod. No, it felt harsh. Like if you're giving it for like it's definitely not a red card from the second. The second bite he has at him because he doesn't really touch him. So it's got to be for that first one. And I think it does go too far. I've been reading through all the Twitter referees about if it's a red card or not. And I must admit, I'm now even further from knowing. I don't know. It is a tough one for the referee. I think if it was one of our players the other way around, we'd be like, that's great refereeing. He's seen if anything materializes from it, something doesn't, and so it's probably a red at the end of the day. It, like you said, there's no attempt to play the ball. We've seen this before where he just hacks at him and it's cynical. So it's one of those cynical red cards. It's not malicious, it's cynical. So it's probably a red, but I don't really know by the letter of the law. I tried to learn and I still don't know. So it's a tough one for the referee.
Yeah, I think that I can see people's point about the advantage because he lets play run on, but he calls it back. He calls back the initial offence, so therefore the advantage hasn't been played. Like if he carries on playing, in theory, he could have given a penalty because the second bite at the cherry that Bagan has at him kind of pulls Nando to the floor, and the referee could, in theory, then say if he then says that's a penalty and books Bagan for the first offence, that's when I think the yellow card, the red card changes to a yellow card. But he doesn't play advantage really. He doesn't wave the game on. He pulls it back, and therefore he gives the initial offence. So therefore, it's a red card because he hasn't played the advantage. I think that's my reading of it. I think Bagan has to put in a tackle. I think he could have been smarter. He could have dropped off the yard and tried to run with him because I don't think at that point Nanto's clear on goal. And I think it's a bit naive from Bagan. But at the same time, I can understand why he's made the challenge. So I feel a bit sorry for him. He's in a bit of an impossible situation. One, he's playing football when he probably shouldn't be. That's quite impossible for him. And two, he had to try and make a challenge. And obviously, Ben, from our perspective, the game just fizzled out from there, didn't it?
I find it hard to fizzle out for something that didn't really get going, but yeah, somehow we've managed it. That's got to be something impressive on itself. But yeah, it's just overall, it was just a shocking day at the office when you sort of think about the tributes and everything that went on with Bamba. And if anything, how does that not get you geared up? You've got all these legends of the club there, like all there to honour a great man, and just to put in that is just embarrassing from every single one of them. Players, staff, just right across the board. Shocking. There was just no battle there from any of them. From it, no one was. They didn't look up from it from the moment one, apart from, like you said, rules. And as soon as that red card came on, like you said, it killed it, and it got worse after the red. And I think we're lucky we had the red, like you said, because it gives the players an excuse. Oh, we were down to 10 men, so we couldn't do much.
Tom, it just looked like a team that had given up, hasn't it? You talked about it earlier that you don't really care that there was nothing to really get excited about. The game was gone before it was over, but it's true, isn't it? The players just didn't look like they cared.
Yeah, it does make you wonder how much they knew, I think, going into the game about what was going on. And I think when there's a bit of turmoil around the club, when the manager's probably on the way out, and then you look across to the other side of the pitch and you're playing Leeds, it's daunting. Yeah. And I think, like saying earlier, like it's daunting as a fan base. You look at that game and it's very rare, but it was one of those ones where you go, we're getting absolutely nothing after this. Like we're lacking leaders on the field at the moment. You've got a manager who knows he's on his way out. You can tell by his comments this week and the weeks gone by that he was a man who knew he was on his way out. Yeah, it felt like he was trying to get sacked, and that will have an effect on the players. And it's not even just the results. Like we're sitting at the bottom of the league on 1 point, but we haven't played well. And arguably one of the only times we played well, we got battered 5-0. And
we had half an hour at Swansea as well, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly right. So we've probably had collectively had about 90 minutes of good football across the whole of the start of the season. The only good performance we've really seen is from the youngsters in the cup. And you do wonder like how much of an effect that has. And we'll get on to Bulut being sacked, but something needed to happen because there was. If you can't have if you've got, like Ben mentioned, you've got all the club legend stuff for the club, that doesn't give you a boost. Where's the boost coming from? Because it's not coming from the stands, because the atmosphere is flat, and you can't blame the fans for that. So there's no catalyst anywhere, and you've lost the likes of Ramsey and stuff as well to injury. So you haven't even got him to kind of galvanize. So it's just, I say I don't care, I really do care, but it's just one of those ones going into it where it felt so inevitable. It just felt like everyone around the club had given up completely going into that fixture.
Ben, to end on some kind of positive, I thought Jack Alnwick was pretty good. Will Fish looked pretty good. Any other players stand out for you? He had a very poor performance.
I think they're literally the only two that come out with this with anything about them. El Ghazi looks a little sharper. Had the best chance of the day and probably should have done better. Probably should have tucked it away. But it was a very, very bad day at the office. I think we're very lucky that Leeds almost felt sorry for us in a way, or just couldn't be asked to do more.
They missed a penalty, right?
Yeah, if I'm a Leeds fan, I'm probably annoyed that we haven't stuck 4 or 5 on us, because they just didn't seem like they wanted to. It wasn't they couldn't do it. They were just, well, this is done. Let's take it easy.
Yeah. I mean, from their point of view, they didn't have to get out second gear, did they?
No, I'd argue they got in first. They were just there.
I don't drive, Ben, so my car analogies aren't strong.
It was.
They didn't get out of 5th gear.
It was they won't have an easier 3 points all season, especially away from home.
They won't.
It was as comfortable as you like, and the only frustration then is it wasn't more.
We could talk about the players who played badly, but I just don't think there's any point in doing that, because we'd be here for another half an hour talking about the bad performances from Saturday. A word on the tributes. I thought the club as a whole led the tribute to Sol Bamba before the game brilliantly. I think having Sol Bamba's wife there, having his mother there was incredibly touching. Having all the ex-players on the sidelines, the minute silence, the 50 minutes before the game was brilliant. I think the club deserves a lot of praise for that. Dalman and Chu were very dignified, obviously being there, laying the wreaths. The Leeds fans who came down to lay the wreaths. I think it was a very fitting tribute for the great man. But it was let down a little bit somewhat in the 14th minute, Tom. Obviously, there's that image going around of the bench. The Leeds bench stood up applauding on 14 minutes, and our bench kind of sat down, looking very sullen. I tweeted from our account. It just kind of compounds everything, doesn't it, really? And it shows a club that is incredibly disconnected at the moment from everything around it. Say a team, because the club was spot on with their tributes.
Yeah, just optics wise. I've gone through a few different things. I was trying to be kind of level headed about this. You're thinking, at best it's naive.
Yeah.
Not to stand up doing that. But then you think about it, right? You look in front of you, to the left, to the right, to the bench, to the side to you. Everyone else is standing and clapping.
Yeah,
it's on the screens. What's going on around you. It's I've arrived in games before chatting with a mate and realized, shit, there's a minute silence on or something like that, and you immediately quiet down because you look like a fool. They know what's going on. There's been a build up to this for a week as well. You've got the tribute, you've got the night before. It's not as if it's a shock to them. It's mind blowing, really. And I think you could. Yes, it's a team who defeated. They probably know what's coming, but come on, get on your feet and start. It's bizarre, really. There's no real excuse for it. I was looking for excuses, but there really isn't one for this, and it's such a letdown because, like you said, the club have been so good. The little things like having the photos of Bamba around the press room. They got the finer details right, because sometimes we can have a go at the club about the heart's in the right place, but the execution hasn't quite been there, whether it's down to resources or whatever. But they got everything right to this, and then to be let down by the managerial staff is a bitter pill, really. It's really, really annoying from that point of view, because it's the one that's in the focal point for everything. That's the one that'll make papers, Twitter, everyone sees that, and it's just this juxtaposition of having the Leeds players stood up and them not. It just looks really, really bad.
Ben, your thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I went to the tribute night with the players Q&A Friday. Rid hosted it. Everything about it was the right tone. It was touching. It was fun. It was just reminiscing about a really, really good bloke. Sol's wife Chloe was there speaking to people. Absolute mountain of strength for her as well, because the bravery that takes to turn up into a room there and all they want to do is talk about the person you've lost, like the love of your life that you've lost. Just unbelievable strength from her. Everything was handled well, and for the staff and the players to do that is just a flat out disgrace. There's lots, like I tweeted about it, you can forgive performances on the pitch stuff, but it's shit like that that really hurts as a fan. That is a bloke that gave everything to this club. Like, you've literally watched a tribute package. Another thing the club did fantastically, by the way, that tribute video is
it was amazing.
unbelievable. All of that, just great. And then to see them just sat down, barely clapping, barely acknowledging it. It's not like we're losing that game at that point either. All of it's still, like, the worst is still to come at that point. It's just embarrassing from every single one of them. The players and the staff should all be ashamed. There were staff that were at that tribute night, at the tribute on Friday night, talking about Sol, that weren't stood up. Even like the chairman's box and everything around them stood up for that applause. Yeah. It's just a flat out disgrace, and it'll take a lot for me to forgive every single one of those on that bench, from Atete, Davis, players all the way through. Just piss poor.
I think, like, for Bulut and his team as well, that'll be the lasting legacy now. That's the unfortunate thing.
They've sullied it, haven't they?
Like, it's just the timing of it is awful. Like, the optics are bad. It's been a bad few weeks, and that's kind of capped it off. And I think a lot of good faith and goodwill will be lost because of it. And it's a real shame.
But this isn't like it's players. Like, this isn't like a player that was here 20 years ago. Sol was coaching
3 years
the club.
ago.
18. Sol was coaching 18 months ago. He was at the club.
Yeah.
And there was players at the club at that time that didn't respond to that. It's unforgivable. It really is. Every single one of them.
Yeah, I think they need to. That photo's gone around. Everyone's seen it. It's become the focal point of the talk of the game. I think that there needs to be some acknowledgement from the club for it. Whether it's an apology, whether it's a fundraising commitment, something like that, just to make up for it. Because I think
it's from the club. I think it needs to be led from, like, and I'm not going to single him out because he was on the pitch at the time, but this is where the captain steps up and does something. I think Rawls has got to lead this from the front and say, right, it's more from the players and the staff that I'm really pissed off at.
Yeah.
The players have really let themselves down here. I think they need to sort of front this up and acknowledge their mistake. And I think, look, we made a mistake. Here's the squad have got together and donated $5,000 or whatever which isn't a huge amount of money for a big squad like that on decent championship wages, to Lymphoma Action, which is the charity that they were raising money for on Friday. Something like that goes away. Just, they need to do some sort of makeup for this, because what they did was appalling.
Yeah, it was poor. And that's, like you say, it's going to be the legacy now of Erol Bulut, who has left the club as of today, relieved of his coaching duties, him and Nico Karides, around lunchtime today. Tom, the writing's been on the wall for a few weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of those ones, though, where it's like, how long are they going to let this pad out? Because it felt like it was going to happen a week or two ago. But, I think it's such a pity, because there was a clamour from a large proportion of us to get a contract signed, and it did feel like almost like a beginning of a new dawn, didn't it? I think it felt like we steadied the ship last year. Then this year, it was time to kick on, and God, it couldn't be further from that. And I think just the fact that it's Leeds that we're playing, and you look back at that Leeds performance at Ellen Road, like early in the tenure, was it his first? Was his first game?
First game, the 2-2.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, and like, obviously I know it ended with them with a bit of a comeback from Leeds, but like the performance that day, the attacking intent,
night and day.
Josh Bowler looking like an absolute world beater, and I think we were harking back to that a little bit as a fan base, thinking, look, we've seen it happen. There's no reason why it can happen this year, and for it to end in the way that it has compared to that, it just shows how far we've regressed. Like, it's not like we've stagnated. We have gone backwards significantly. Like it's been appalling in the last few weeks. Like, this season has been absolutely atrocious, and we don't often agree with the decision of the board, like, over the last decades, but it's the right one, isn't it? I think something needs to change, and he looked like a manager who'd completely thrown the towel in a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I was gearing up for him to have this week in charge. The way he was. I think when you look at the manner of his press conference and the manner of his interviews yesterday, he was a man resigned to his fate. But the way he was talking was, "I'm still going to be here on Monday," and I was gearing up for next Saturday at Hull to be probably one of the most toxic occasions ever seen as an away game for a Cardiff City fan. Obviously, it was the scene of so much joy in 2018 when we got basically sealed promotion there. It could have come full circle with absolute madness on Saturday. Ben, it's not nice to see a manager get sacked so soon in the season, but they had no choice, did they?
Yeah, look, after the last couple of performances, it was game over, wasn't it? I do feel if it wasn't the Sol Bamba tribute stuff, I think perhaps it might have happened sooner. But again, I think the club got it right of not taking the focus away from Sol for the start of the game by not relieving Bulut and his team sooner, because it's more than justified. And I probably more than anyone's been defending Bulut and wanted it to work out for him, but they were left with no choice, weren't they? You see performances of that and everything that's gone on. It just had to happen. And yeah, like Tom said, we don't give the board too much credit because a lot of the times they don't deserve it. And they're sure as hell ain't going to get scot-free from us for the next few months. A lot of their decision-making has led to this point. But the big decision there was Bulut had to go because we're starting 93 years, I think.
93, 94 years. I can't remember the exact, but it's in that time frame.
Which is mad.
It's an all-timer, guys. It's an all-timer.
It's nice to break records, isn't it?
Well, exactly. He's a trailblazer in some ways. Tom, you kind of alluded to that. We were, as a podcast, as a group, as a lot of fans were, we were relatively supportive of Bulut getting another year. And for me, I'll pose the question to you as well, but I'm surprised at just how bad it's been this season, because we talked about it last week on the podcast. The summer, there were so many positive noises coming out of the football club. You had Chambers coming in talking about intricate passing with Ramsey. It's like, we're going to be doing this a little bit more. In the preseason games I saw, the games we played when we were on tour, we were outscoring Bundesliga teams. We were outscoring decent footballing sides. We played Bristol Rovers in the last preseason, or one of the last preseason games. The football we were playing there was really good, really intricate. And then the season started, and it just wasn't the same, was it? And I don't know what's happened behind the scenes, but it just feels the fall off. I don't know if it's the same for you, but the fall off has been massive since the promise that we saw over the summer. And I just can't get my head around what's happened. I don't know if the players aren't buying into their methods or whatever it is, but it just feels such a disconnect from what happened in the summer, doesn't it?
I think the more you look at it, the more it feels like something has happened. Because, like you said, there was so much positivity before the season. It just amplifies how bad this has been. It just makes everything so much worse because we came into it confident. Like, you look at our
at our table. So look at our prediction table.
Yeah, but like we mentioned this, that like we don't do that on the back of nothing. Yeah, there was a lot of like pundits saying, look, we'd be around the relegation scrap, but it felt like we were seeing something. Like, you were at Bristol Rovers. There was moments where we were shaky at the back, but we were shaky at the back because we were trying a new system of passing, like you mentioned earlier on. Yeah. None of that's happened this season. And, I've been speaking to like a few Cardiff fans recently, and like ones who are some of the most optimistic Cardiff fans who are going, I just want to do other things with my Saturday. And when it's like that, it's like something's turned. And you can read a lot into like body language and stuff. There's like we concede a goal, and it's just trudging back to the halfway line. Like there's an inevitability about it. And it's like, I don't mind watching a team that loses when there's fight or where you see where we're trying to go, but there's been none of that. And I know we've said all this before, but like it's just been so frustrating this season.
Yeah.
And I think it's the least I've enjoyed Cardiff games for a long, long time, because I think you can give, players a bit of wiggle room when they're just not good enough. We've got players there who are good enough. We've got 100%. Players who should be like, put in performances. I know we've been awful in front of goal. We've still got enough players there to create chances. Maybe we haven't got a striker to put them away, but we're not creating anything. There'll be teams in this league this year who've created more XG in one game than we have all season. And that is just simply not good enough. And the worst thing is our worst performances are always at home. And it used to be a fortress. Like, we used to say Fortress CCS. Oh, I can't remember like a time when it's been like that again now. And that's where the majority of our fans see the football. And it just is so damaging for our fan base, because why would you want to go and watch that? And like, it's just been so much worse since. And the preseason got us hyped because we were like, finally, there's going to be a breakthrough here in this style of football we're playing. And it just hasn't materialized at all. And it feels like such a missed opportunity.
Ben, you know, we'll go through the Twitter reaction shortly, but there's a lot of people saying that, you know, this form goes back into last season, that we should never give him a contract. But there was something happening in the summer, wasn't there? And it felt like we wanted that continuity, and Bulut was the man to give it to us, and he deserved that chance. But do you regret supporting Bulut in the same way, or you know, justify yourself to me, Ben? Were you happy with your support for Bulut? I was stumbling over my words. I didn't know how to rest it. But like,
it's a good spin on it.
It's just me. Yeah. So sorry, but sorry, Carl.
All of us.
It's all me. All my fault.
Podcast.
I've had my rant. Your turn.
Yeah.
I don't regret it. Look, the club's been crying out for stability for a long time. We've been desperate for something to cling on to, something, some kind of plan over the last 14 years of this regime at the club. Like, there's got to be something there to cling on to, that something's coming forward, some good times are coming.
Not for
I don't regret.
No good times for us.
I don't regret like supporting, but like, he seemed like a good bloke. Everything about him, especially at the start, seemed like it was good vibes, and you cling on to that. And then the summer was very exciting. Again, no regrets in saying like, I thought we'd do well. I really think the squad's capable of doing good things. Like the trip, like the whole of the Portugal tour and stuff like that, you look at its performances, it feels like it's a completely different club to what's on that pitch now. It's just like Tom said, something must have happened behind the scenes for this to go off like that. Because it's just, even for us, this is not normal. It's just wild that it's got this bad so quickly. I thought maybe if we could have got to Christmas, and like you see the drop off then normally something goes wrong at Christmas. No, we've got it early this year. Christmas has come early, folks. So yeah, I don't regret supporting Bulut. I was desperate for it to work. I'm absolutely desperate for it. There's a cat there.
Yeah, my cat just jumped up onto the desk and then fell off immediately. So if anyone wonders what that was, because now we're recording this, you will see that. But she fell off as soon as she jumped up. Tom, you said something there about like how it's the least you've enjoyed it as a fan and all that kind of stuff. I remember, 2 years ago when we had the Morrison, Hudson, Lamucci season, plus Whitehead, can't forget him. We were coming on this podcast every week, but there was a sense of kind of like gallows humor to it. Like there was, this is bad, but also it's quite funny. And how bad could this get? But we're kind of not sure if we're going to get relegated or not. This season has just been like, I don't even want to watch the games. I've got tickets for Hull on Saturday, and now Bullet's gone. I probably will go, but I bought the ticket out of kind of grim commitment and kind of feeling like I had to buy a ticket, because there was no way we were going to go to Hull and get a result, even though Hull at that point hadn't won a game either. But it's just, there's something so off about this season, and I would love to know what's happened behind the scenes. And we could talk about Ryan Wintle. What Ryan Wintle has been on social media today. He's liked the post from the Cardiff City FC account. He's posted a video of kind of people dancing on Instagram. But do you think decisions like that, and like, last season Ryan Wintle was the captain. He was a focal point in the dressing room. Everyone knows he's close to NG, Tanner. I think he's someone that people kind of coalesce around. But kind of removing him, was that his mistake? Was that where it all started going wrong?
I don't think so. It wasn't working for Wintle anyway. I think it's a bit of revisionism if we're saying, oh yeah, that was the problem, and removing him. But that will like upset it. There's no doubt. But I do wonder with Bulut is he came across as very likable in a lot of press conferences at times, but he was quite blunt. And I wonder, it does seem like people weren't buying into that in the end. I think the novelty of it kind of wore off, and there's a clear like indication from some of the players that they think he's a bit of a cock. to put it bluntly. I think
Yeah.
he wasn't a manager in the end who they wanted to play for. And there's clearly a massive disconnect between the playing staff and the managerial staff, and it's gone too far. And it does make you wonder, was that a bit of a delay? Is that where the delay in giving him a contract came from? Did they not like his personality type as well? Because we do only see a bit of it. And I don't know that a lot of our fan base kind of bought into him. And I thought he came across really well. But what is he like to work with on a day-to-day basis? And there's always... I think that's the first thing people look for now, isn't it? When a manager goes, is what's the reaction on social media from players? Who's doing a cheeky like they think won't get spotted? But you know full well in Wintel's case, he wanted that
people
to be
were
seen.
looking for it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like he wants that in the public domain, and it's just soured really, really quickly. And you're going on about like the gallows humor and stuff. It's because the hope we had this year, and it's just... And you said about the blind commitment bit as well. If this was any sort of entertainment industry other than football, you just wouldn't go to it. And like, there is that commitment. So I ought to be there. You know, it's my club. I know, get behind the players and stuff like that. But there's been nothing to watch. And I think Ryan Marsh said it, friend of the pod, on Twitter. Like, it's sad days, and it's been sad days for Cardiff for a long time. And that's why I was laughing when Ben Price said, like, even for us, this is bad. We've had it bad for... We've had some really, really top moments over the last like 15, 20 years. But when it's been bad, it's been awful. And there's been a lot of it. And we've now got to the point where those positives don't outweigh the negatives anymore. And it feels like we've moved away from the club that we all grew up supporting. It's just not the same anymore. And it feels like we probably won't get back to that. And it seems to have infected the playing staff and the managerial staff as well now, because it's just meh all the time. There's nothing enjoyable about it.
The Premier League year, obviously, that was the last time that it was probably good, right? We were back in the Premier League. There was a lot that happened in that season, but a lot that, you know, when you think about what happened, the tragedy with Salah and all that kind of stuff, it was a lot, but it kind of galvanized the club to some degree, and the club took something from that they were able to then turn around and kind of use for their own benefit. It's a very crass way of looking at it, but it kind of created that siege mentality that they were able to harness. The next season didn't start so well with Warnock going, but then Harris kind of did turn it around and got us into the playoffs. But since Harris has gone, and you know, it's just the time for him as it was, Harris went, and things have just sort of been in a slow decline since then. McCarthy did all right for a bit, then it was that really bad run of losses. We brought in Morrison, who kind of rescued the ship, but then he got sacked unceremoniously. Hudson was an absolute death march, really, when you think back to it. It was a really poor run of games that he had. Lamucci kept us up, but it wasn't great in the second half of the season. And last season, while we were hopeful of Erol Bulut coming in and changing it, and he gave us some really good moments, Swansea, Bristol, the Ipswich Southampton wins, you know, there were really good moments throughout the season. On the face of it, and we'll go through the tweets because the people have pointed this out, like the second half of the season, pretty much from November onwards, was really bad at times. The football wasn't great. And now it's at the stage where, Ben, really, where do we go from here? We'll talk through the Twitter reaction, and then we'll go through what the club will do. Because, Ben, that's the reality, isn't it? Bulut is a symptom, and I think we need to talk about the football being bad and the Bulut as a separate thing to what's going on at the club at times. But if the club doesn't fix itself and the club doesn't change up here, then whoever comes in as manager is not going to be able to succeed, are they?
No, look, there's an issue at the club, and the cause rotten. We've said it for years now. I think as long as we've been doing this pod together, everything sort of comes down to the people at the top. It's the people making the big day-to-day decisions that are really causing these issues. Bulut had his own mistakes. Bulut's responsible for his own actions on the pitch and some of the other bits of that, but a lot of it is outside of his control as well. That this transfer window, the delay in getting his contract, for starters, was all symptoms of just how messy this club's been, how just disjointed it is, where the chairman wants to appoint him, clearly the owner doesn't. Who makes that decision? How long does it take to talk him round? Right the way through, all the way back to what's gone on with this club. That just as long as they've been there, it's never been straightforward. It's never been plain sailing. And then holding on to grudges from Tan. We all know what this club needs is someone with football knowledge, a football expert on the board to help oversee those decisions and work alongside Tan and talk to him. But he got his hands burnt by Ian Moody sort of in a similar role and will flat out refuse to do it. That was almost 14 years ago. It's a long, long time. Like it's as long as he's been at the club. It was like his second or third year into ownership.
Yeah.
So about 12 years ago then, sorry. He needs to let that shit go because it's not healthy to hold on to stuff that long. Never mind for him, never mind the club. It's just sad. I almost feel sorry for him in a way that he holds on to these grudges this much. People make mistakes. It's cost him a lot of money. But eventually you've got to let that stuff go and sort of say, right, this one was wrong. You learn from it and you move on and progress because you know it's the right thing. You can't just then go, I know everything. I'm doing that. I mean, he owns a franchise from isn't Kenny Rogers a country singer in America?
Yeah, I don't even think he's alive anymore either.
No, and he makes his money selling his fucking chicken. So
what I was going to say though there, in defense of Vincent Tan, Ben, is that holding on to grudges, irrational or rational, is a very key part of being a football fan. And Ben, you hate Lee Johnson.
Yeah, but I'm not in charge of Cardiff City. I think every single listener to this,
but what I'm saying,
that is for the best.
But he's learned something from football, and that's to create and hold on to these grudges. Cornelius, Mackay, Moody, he hates them all.
And fair enough, but sometimes I wouldn't let it cloud my judgment when it's costing me. Was he putting in about $1 million a month at the moment?
A bit more than that. I think it's about 2 million.
At some point, I'm going, might calm down a bit here, lads, and I might wipe my neck in a bit and sort of get some help here because I ain't doing too well myself. Even I've got self-awareness for that, and I don't have much self-awareness at all, as many people will tell you.
We'll go through the details of the replacement and what comes next shortly. We had obviously, if I don't read your tweet, I'm sorry. We put out a tweet initially saying we're recording tomorrow, but because Bulut's been sacked, we now have 61 tweets about Bulut being sacked. So we just have too many tweets to read. So I'm just going to go through these as best I can. And if I don't read it, I'm sorry. We need a better system for this because we're getting inundated with tweets. We've already mentioned him. Tom, friend of the pod, Ryan March. He says, I'd like us to strip it back to basics, get rid of all the high-earning pros who don't really add much, bring in a young coach who will work with our core of good young players. I'd rather go down trying to do it like that than whatever bastardized mess it is at the moment. MJ Doe 27, he said his overall record is poor. Take away a lot of the late goals and it's absolutely abhorrent. Publicly humiliated Tanner, Robbo and Colwell. Turned the whole dressing room against him. Had a fitness coach as assistant. Just the tip of the iceberg. Toxic group. Who had to go? Who's next? And he said, sadly, whoever comes next is already up against it. A wonky squad, a wanky board, a club who, if we're honest, we've never fully recovered from the rebrand. Lost fans, lost identity, atmosphere on its arse. Week in, week out. Club needs a leader. Club needs some soul and identity. Adam James says, still riddled with apathy. The next appointment is crucial, but I'm concerned the club will make a mess of it. Mowbray or Schumacher would be good appointments, but we'll probably end up with someone even cheaper. Scott Salter, friend of the pod, says, a shame. Really wanted it to work out. Of all the managers we've had in recent years, he seemed like the one who wasn't a yes man and would challenge upwards. Seemed to want to build a club and not just a team for now, but there's no hiding. It's been really bad and the right core. As I'm sure everyone will point out, who manages the club feels irrelevant with the sham of the board in place. I get Tan isn't interest anymore, but does he not see the change needed to protect his asset? Forget football, incapable people running the business. Bluebird's Pass says really wanted him to do well and for some stability, but it's been dreadful for a while now. Right decision. Matthew Hawkins says stability isn't worthwhile if it's consistently poor. Should have gone in the summer. Set piece goals and late comebacks never sustainable. Football was dire. Dugout players in public. Signed crap dirty man over our talented looking youngsters. Don't get what some saw in him. Oliver Rees says I've seen how this ends. Rob Page masterclass. Alid Hopkins says multiple promotions, got the best out of the players and been successful everywhere he's gone. Plays attacking, forward-thinking, pressing football. Time to give Dave Dave Challoner his chance in the championship, if he'd even take it. And that would bring things full circle with Andy Legg, because they both used to have a really long throw. And obviously, we both then become club legends as Dave Challoner takes us to the Premier League. Alex OS.
The managers taking the throw-ins?
Why not? Well, Dave Challoner had a long throw, didn't it? It's just him and Andy Legg back in like the early 2000s with the two long throw guys.
Right. I generally just thought you were going, right, he's just coming, like, you're going NFL sort of set piece drill coach sort of thing here, and he's just playing to take throw-ins.
I'd love that, to be honest.
Which even for us. Yeah, I'm saying now, I'm not against it, actually. Yeah.
Sign him with Rory Delap. And Andy Legg, actually. Right decision, Alex. Sorry, right decision, but dreading to think how long who the replacement will be. No faith in the board to get this right. Oh, I just lost the tweets. No, point the right man. Ian Evans. We were all desperate for some stability and consistency, but it couldn't go. When all fans are apathetic rather than annoyed when we concede, then that's a problem. John T.M. Williams, not surprised, leaving progressive players out the starting 11. Who next, I hear you ask? Was that a red yesterday? Thought at most it was the yellow myself. Alex Bennett, 1 goal in 6 is unacceptable. Think his transfers are excellent. The likes of Robertson, Darland, and now Fish, I think will benefit us in the long term. Back on the merry-go-round, Richard Endicott. So Bulut got the bullet. A real shame, as I really wanted him to do well. Hopefully the next manager has more than just the first division title on Football Manager to his name. Gareth Dunning, he lost me at Derby. He came out and said big changes needed to happen. I expected a reaction. It was untenable, and being so stubborn was an issue. His recent stats are clear to see. Went before it became toxic. Chris Bradwick, good signings on paper in the summer, but didn't know how to get the best out of them. Had to go. Football is a results business, but the football itself was joyless and dire watch. Dan Evans, ostensibly nice guy, but terrible manager. Boring, negative football since day one. Tactically clueless with subs. Can't adapt. Bad manager. Bad with young players. A lot of fans bought into it because he was suave and did the fist pump thing. Wow. I feel like I've been seen there. I did like his coats. I really liked his coats. Space Coyote. I respect him from what he managed to achieve last season and gave us a lot of optimism in what was a very bleak time. The wheels simply came off the wagon this season. The Sol disrespect did legitimately piss me off, though. Rodri says no point getting excited over replacements. We'll probably get Darren Purse, and he'll somehow blag the job full time. When's the quiz coming back? Oh, Ben Price, big boots to fill. Got a quiz coming later, Rodri. Chris Ab Iago. Tis a shame it's come to this, but saying Cardiff were creating chances whenever in the ground was bored rigid meant with the shocking start you couldn't stay. Josh Wolfstein, Ryan Lowe or Schumacher. Wonder if Warnock was tapped up yesterday for it. Reece Spear, as much as Erol hasn't worked, I'm not sure he was the real root of the issues. Is there a manager that can work with his club in current form? Rachel Booth, I really wanted him to work out, but yesterday's performance was dreadful and the players are clearly not having fun. John Shedd, I fear the interim manager bounce. I feel Reeser is part of the problem, but if he strings a couple of results together, I think the board will appoint him full-time. Kind of spot on, isn't it? Geggs Williams, gutted, not because it's the wrong decision. He had to go, just really wanted it to work out for him. Bluebird 1927, he was never really backed by all club hierarchy, hence the dithering over his contract. The club never really went out and got the players required either. Was the right decision to end it now? It was clear he couldn't lift the team and would get a result. Only 50-50 things get better. Max 78921, gutted it didn't work out. Edward Tobin, the right decision, but I have zero faith in the ownership. Getting a decent replacement in. Club needs an overhaul from top to bottom. Dan Lowe, gutted for him, wanted him to succeed as he is a likeable guy. Worry is who we now get in. My bet is Schumacher in before Hull. RMK Williams says Thomas Tuchel is available. Connor Gill, the board will appoint someone worse. Alan Griffith, boo, we wanted 2 pods. Rooster Joe, I don't trust our board to do anything right. The only time we've done anything remotely positive was to stumble upon Warnock. Everything has been shite. At least this has been done with plenty of recovery time for us. Ellis Hearn, unfortunately, tactics didn't work. Like the manager, but tactically not there for the championship. You can't play inverted fullbacks and inside forwards at this level. No width, no plan. On to the next. Need to stay in this league at all cost. And they just go on and on like that. MJCCFC, good decision, right to do it with 40 games left and not let it fester. Don't agree with the narrative. We need a row at type with 40 games left. Could still make something of the season and build for the future with a more bold appointment. Matty Aztec, it's about time, but it's only delaying the inevitable. Board needs to drastically change or leave themselves. Thank you to everyone who tweeted, twitter.com/VFT Ninian. Maybe try and keep to only 30 tweets next time, guys. That's a lot for us to read through. But Ben, the overall
sad now.
Well, yes, I hope you do. The overall sentiment there, Ben, is what you were talking about, obviously, before we kind of went into those tweets. And I will caveat this by saying that I understand that when these conversations happen around the manager, that it always comes back to the board. But I do think on this occasion, I think Bulut is a lot to blame for what's happening on the pitch. And I don't think he can. I ultimately think that all managers are going to come a cropper because of the way that the board works and the way this club is run. But other managers have got, and I tweeted something to this effect last week, other managers have got the players performing on the pitch. Neil Harris got us into the playoffs. Warnock got us promoted. Russell Slade almost got us into the playoffs, for heaven's sake. Bulut was the master of his own downfall on the pitch. But the reality is, Ben, and it's a long way of saying it, is that the club needs a shake-up, doesn't it? And we've talked about the ownership model, we've talked about the board. Obviously, Dalman and Chu were there this weekend, but we don't see them for most of the time. Vincent Tan hasn't been. Oh, he came to one game last year. I think it was in November, wasn't it, when they did a lot of their planning? We don't see him apart from that, and that absence of kind of authority and commitment from the board around the club just creates a vacuum where bad decisions fester, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, we don't want to see them in the public eye, but they need to be around the club. I think that's the gist of it, isn't it? You can't do and run a club properly part-time. Every single well-run, like you look at clubs that have been well-run and sort of got themselves sorted, there's not a chance that the chairman and the CEO of Brighton, for example, are part-time.
No.
They're just not. They're there every day. The owner's massively involved in that club. He's buying into it. He wants to get involved, wants to make it the best he can. He wants to make a success of it.
As far as I know at Brighton, the owner's involved in the transfer negotiations.
Well, he's developed that stat thing, isn't he? He's like, he
doesn't hand it over to anyone else. He does it.
Yeah, like I don't really want Tan doing that, but they need to be more involved. We need people day to day involved with the football side of things, not just trying to fight fires in the courtroom. Because a lot of this is still going on as well. There's I get they're busy with the Salah stuff and everything going on there, and the other probably 20 million lawsuits they're fighting against. Because the club seem to love a court battle, as much as they seem to love a relegation battle recently. It is just, it can't go on like this. It's not sustainable. We will end up this season in League One if we don't sort things out on and off the pitch. We got lucky with Reading a few years ago. We tried to sustain it with Bulut, and if it carries on this way, we're in the LDV Vans Trophy next year.
Ooh, that'd be good.
Street Motors.
Something new.
Street Motors is called now, I think. The BSM. Tom, the question I always have around this stuff is, we have an owner in Vincent Tan, we have a chairman in Mehmet Dalman, and we have a CEO in Ken Chu. We have three executive level staff, if you will, who are meant to be running this football club, and it all seems to boil down to what Vincent Tan wants, really. And I get it, he's the owner of the club, he has the ultimate say in things. What's the point of having three high-level members of staff if we're simply relying on one person to do it? And then I know Dalman's been involved in the court case. What's Chu doing, really, day to day involved with Cardiff City, apart from running HRO in? I don't get it.
No, I don't think he's well liked. I don't think anyone within the club would know what he does either, apart from bumble around the place, like acting the fool. Like, it's weird to have such obvious and prominent figureheads in the club who don't do anything. Like, they're so well known, but we don't see them at the same time. And that's because of their incompetence. And it's just, you'd think after all this time they would have learned a little bit more about football. But if anything, it's even worse than it was before. I think some of their early decision making has probably been better than some of their recent ones. And it's just gone a bit stale. It's just, I think it was really well put by Ben earlier, the fact that like we want to have like the communication from them, but not in the public eye sort of thing. We only get those snippets of like sound bites when they go on Talk Sport. There's no communication with us as fans on a regular basis.
That kind of trust meeting kind of every quarter, but we only ever hear the minutes from that.
Yeah, and it's just
not like the fan advisory board thing's bollocks. Like, let's be honest, that could have been something that worked out well, and like the fans like really had a say and sort of like put that across. But they've done well helping with this stuff with Bamba and the flag and stuff. But outside of that, nothing's changed.
Well, they're not. No, I mean it's a regulatory thing, isn't it, to have a fan advisory board? So the club is effectively ticking a box with it.
Yeah, that's all it is.
And while I would like to think that the fan advisory board could get big change, they're not. You know, who are they going to meet with? That's the problem as well, isn't it? It's not fair on them to basically be told you've got to organise these meetings and attend these meetings, but in reality, who's going to be there? I think it's Borley who attends them. So it's not. I love Steve Borley; he's been at the club for a long time, but he's clearly not a decision maker anymore, is he?
I think the disappointment that like dawns on me, like every now and again, is like you see like how long they've been at the club now, and you look at some of the teams who were around our level and they probably have the same. They might be a little bit bigger than us in some ways, but like it's such a missed opportunity with us. The potential of this club is massive. Like,
yeah,
I know that we weren't big in like for a big part of our history as well, right? We were floating on the bottom end of the like 4 divisions and stuff. But in recent years, we've got a good stadium now. We had that foundation there, and the teams that like growing up that I didn't like because we were playing them on a regular basis, the things they've gone on to, like the big one obviously is Leicester winning the Premier League.
Yeah,
we were playing them in the playoffs. Like they were our level. Like, and I'm not saying we should have won the Premier League, of course not. But what I'm saying is there's a springboard there for us to kick on as a club. And we've missed those opportunities. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've still got the same people at the helm now. And we're now floating around where we are because there's been bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. The odds one has worked and it's sprung us up to the Premier League. And then we've come straight back down because of bad decisions again. And I think they got like the transfers right this summer. But then there's always something else that's going wrong. And it's just those clubs that like Leicester, Wolves, like those teams that we're playing on such a regular basis who are now like stalwarts in the Premier League. We should have had, it's criminal, I reckon, that we only had 1 year at a time when we got up there.
Yeah.
And it just feels like missed opportunities all the time. And it's just every now and again, like I touched on it earlier on, it's just like we've had some real high points. So I kind of go, oh, I might just been a little bit spoiled to you. I might forgetting that we've had these moments. But I would sacrifice some of them to undo some of the bad decisions I've been done in this club as well. Because I think I'd have a club I'd love more now, like without those big moments. Because it's just not the same. And those 3 are a huge part in ripping the kind of soul out of this club and just ripping the enjoyment. Like this is meant to be an escape for a lot of our fans. It's where you see your mates, you know, every week in the terraces. And a lot of the friends of those people won't have come back after certain decisions that were made by those 3. And it doesn't just affect the 90 minutes on the pitch. There's a knock-on effect on how you feel about the club on your day-to-day. And it's a huge part of people's lives. And at times it felt like they've toyed with it and they've really played with people's emotions here. And it just really upsets me that to see the club in the way it is now. We should be a much bigger club than we are after having those huge high points. And if anything, it's caused us to go backwards as like a community as well. And it's just really sad to see. And they've got a huge amount of blame for that.
Well, we just never kick on, do we? You know, when you think back in our history, you know, the League Cup final, we didn't kick on after that. We then got to the playoffs, and the first thing we did after the playoffs when we lost to West Ham was change the kit from blue to red, which created 2 or 3 years of turmoil. And then when we went back to blue, it took a couple of years to recover. Then we got to the Premier League, and then we haven't kicked on from there. We've gone backwards since coming down from the Premier League. And it is because of the people in charge of the football club. We don't do anything when we're at the high points to invest and sustain the successes that we've had and the trajectory that we're on. And now we're scrambling around again. No, there is no plan. Everything's done on
moments. It's moments. Yeah. I think we're living off moments whenever we hark back to like, I wouldn't say it's a glory period for us. It's a period of moments that we can go, that was an amazing time to be a Cardiff fan, but it's flashes. And it's just irritating, really irritating.
You know, it does. And I think, to your point, Tom, it affects... Football is such a big part, you know, I'm chronically online, and all I do is go on Twitter and look at stuff about Cardiff City. I don't really go on the forums anymore, but I refresh my Twitter feed. I read Wales Online. I read the BBC. I look at all these other websites. I listen to other football. I watch YouTube videos of everything. And I don't want to do that anymore because everything's just so bad. You know, people have been... football is such a big part of my life, and so much of what I do revolves around going to football matches. And then people have been asking me what's going on at Cardiff this year, and I've literally just said I don't want to talk about it. Like, you know, we've made jokes on here before about podcasts where we've just gone, I don't want to be doing this, but it's cathartic. But there are times yesterday where I was like, I don't want to go do a podcast about this because we're getting back to what happened then. You know, we talked about the Morrison, Hudson, Lamucci year. It was week on week of the same episode, wasn't it? Where we were talking about how bad it is. And we've already got there this season with 6 games in. And we're already having to do a root and branch investigation of everything that's going wrong with this football club.
It's just exhausting, isn't it? It's just...
It's unsustainable.
I just want to come on here and talk positive about the club. I don't like slagging them off. I've got the bloody club, the Bluebird tattooed on my arm. Like,
I didn't know that.
It just shouldn't be like, it shouldn't be a thing of just like feel like a chore. I'm coming on here chatting to 2 of my mates each week, and the worst part about it is talking about the football. Like it shouldn't be like that, should it? It's just an effort, man, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't feel like a decision that you go on to regret.
Like, was there any fun tweets?
Well, someone did ask us our ideal Nando's order. If you want, I think we've had that before, but we can. Tom, I did skip that one over because that was in the initial run of tweets, but it did stand out. I can't remember who said it. But Tom, do they have Nando's in Australia?
Yeah, and I've had 5 already. I've been here 2 months.
What is there anything different on the menu?
Oh boy, they do like chicken ribs rather than they do wings as well. But they've got just easier to eat, and I can eat them by the absolute kilo load. But it's not quite as good as the UK. But it's exciting to see a new menu. Even the spice levels are slightly different. So
the spice levels in Australia.
They've got swear words on them.
Yeah, cunting hot,
mate.
Yeah. But it's not as good as the UK. But I've gone to town on the Nando's since being here. Big time.
All right then. Idea, Ben. What's your order at Nando's?
Half chicken, extra hot. Peri
Extra
chip.
hot. Hard guy.
I love spicy food. Extra hot, peri chips, and garlic bread because I'm double carbing. And then on the side, you get the peri vuza sauce. Mix that in with some ketchup as a little dip, and mwah.
Tom,
yours are these chicken ribs.
Yeah, but my UK one, to be honest, was quite an obscene order, and is the reason I'm probably doing a lot of running now. It was like a double chicken wrap, hot with halloumi in it, peri chips, garlic bread, a quarter chicken on the side, and 4 thighs.
I mean, fit. That's a lot of protein.
Mine was
it was playing havoc.
Mine was never really that obscene. I mean, I like the fino pitta, the chicken and chicken thighs and halloumi in a fino pitta, or I go for the slightly rogue choice of the chicken livers, medium, with halloumi sticks to start. The chicken livers are delicious, by the way. Yeah, I know. I'm a bit of a hipster bastard, aren't I? But they are delicious. My mate put them on to me about 10 years ago, so I used to try chicken livers, and I've never looked back. They also have to cook them like fresh. Interesting. Look, we've had our rant about the football club. Look, we're going to have to appoint a new manager at some point. Dragon Bet kindly sent us across their odds because I couldn't find them anywhere else. Next permanent Cardiff City manager, the front runner at the moment with them is James Rowberry, 6-1. Schumacher 7s, Omar Reza 8, Brian Barry Murphy, if you had a BlackBerry BBM, 10-1. Darren Purse, Alex Neil, Nathan Jones, Steve Morrison. The slightly rogue choices towards the bottom of their list. Joe Rolls, Nicholas Karidos, even though he has been sacked, and Ivan Bilic towards the bottom. Ben, any names that tickle your fancy?
Tony Mowbray is just the ideal choice for me. He's used to dealing with basket case clubs. He did a great job at Birmingham, did a great job at Sunderland. Seems like a lovely bloke. Like I said before, I've never seen someone love revels like that man. So even if the football's dire and the club can't get it sorted, at least the press conferences will be entertaining at least.
Tom?
Oh, it's a sad list, isn't it? I think it's a list where we just don't know. And sometimes that's a good thing because, we're not showing our hand. But I think it's because we don't have a plan. And there's there's none of them that jump off the page really and you're like, bang on. I think it feels like we'll end up getting a fairly successful assistant manager from somewhere, that sort of approach, because it falls into our kind of budget. I'd love us. The thing that was exciting about Bulut was we didn't know him and he had a bit of pedigree about him. And I wouldn't mind that type of appointment again. I don't want Rowberry, and it's nothing against him. I just don't want that type of appointment. I don't think it's the right time for us. Mm-hmm. Mowbray would be great. I think just a steady hand of the tiller sort of thing. Schumacher, like I know you're a massive fan, Ben James. But it does feel like there's not anyone who's crying out to be our manager. And I think there would have been a time where we would have been inundated with applications from managers and managers who were in jobs elsewhere. I don't think many people are going to be leaving jobs to come to us now, because why would you? It's such a risk. So it'd be really interesting to see how it develops over the next week or so. And that BlackBerry reference really does date this as a pod.
Right, BlackBerry. Yeah, fine.
That's what it'd be 2006.
I had one.
No.
The
I
BBM
never had a
10.
BlackBerry. I think
No,
I had a BlackBerry like 2010s.
that says more about
that
you.
good? Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
yeah.
I definitely did. I was. Oh, it doesn't leave me alone. One name
You
on
said
the
about
list.
people like jumping out of their jobs. The one big link I've seen is Is it Des Buckingham from Oxford?
I
Yeah.
wouldn't leave Oxford for
Not
us.
a chance.
That's
at the
what I
moment.
was thinking.
You've got a goal scoring machine in Mark Harris, like banging him in for fun. Future Ballon d'Or winner. Why would you
Hasn't
leave
scored
that
in-
club right now?
Hasn't scored in 3,
Yeah.
has he? Harris
Look,
didn't score
yeah,
this weekend. Didn't score in the last game.
Haaland
Go on.
didn't score this weekend. People still think he's a great goal scorer.
Haaland scored this weekend.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
I've realised I don't know the score. I've just woken up. Don't tell
He
me.
scored.
I'll watch the
Man
highlights.
City drew 2-2 with Arsenal,
Did he
and
score?
Haaland scored the first goal.
I was in the car.
Oh,
I
you
thought
spoiled.
it was
sorry, did I
Doc who
spoil it?
scored.
I just
No,
said,
it was
don't tell me.
Haaland.
But I just
Oh, I
realised
didn't
I've
hear you
gone
say
up
don't
to
tell
know the
me. I wasn't
score.
listening. I wasn't
Bastard.
listening. It was a good game. It was good. Right, Ben, your time has come. We've gone on. We've hit the hour. It's time for your quiz.
Wonderful. I'm going to do the classic. Can you see my screen in a second? So everyone's been banging on about a quiz. I thought, you know what?
One person in the tweets has been banging on about a quiz.
No, but there's been a few previously as well, a few comments. And I've given you unfair stick for quizzes and everything like that. So I thought I'd step up to the plate. I
roll my
present
eyes
to
at you like you normally do to me.
happily. But I've gone the extra effort here, mate. I've done graphics. I've done
dread to think what these look
PDF.
like.
I present to you Vincent Tan's play your card if City manager's right.
Oh,
And I've got to share my screen.
I'll keep clapping until the screen shares. There we go.
Here we go.
Oh, this is fancy.
That
that's
is exactly
good.
like the one I did 4 years ago.
I
You
see
just giving it away?
exactly.
Malky Mackay, 43.2%.
Yeah, so we're going to start with Malky because you've got to have your starting point. Because how do you get the rules of the game are like play cards right, higher or lower win percentage.
All right.
So let's start.
Are we just going to go? We're going to go back to back.
I think you just team up. I think it's can you get through to the end without getting them wrong? You've got to decide together. So
all right, okay.
Malky clearly here has looked like his phone's been discovered and they're reading out his tasks and he's asking what's wrong with that. So Malky at 43.2% got sacked. We're not doing this temporary managers. It's only people that are named permanently as a Cardiff City manager. Next game,
Solskjaer's next.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. The only thing that could age Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was managing Cardiff City. So higher or lower win percentage than the great Malky Mackay.
My initial reaction, Tom, is lower.
Yeah, I reckon it's in the low 30s.
You going lower?
I reckon even below that.
It is lower. It's bang on 30%. Good guess there. So Ollie left, and then Gabs and Scott Young came in, but we're not counting them. It then came to the man that kept the club shop in business in the centre of town for years to come, Russell Slade. Higher or lower than 30%, boys?
I reckon higher because he had no Premier League football.
And he almost got us into the playoffs, so I think it's going to be higher.
Yeah.
So you're going higher? 2 for 2. 37.2%. Next came Paul Trollope, a man that when wearing a suit clearly looks like he should be going to court.
It's like 15%, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, it's low. It's low.
It's really low.
So you're both going lower.
He wasn't in charge for long, and he was terrible. So
going for lower. It is 16.6%. It was that bad. So follow on from Paul Trollope, and there's a lot of these, man. It was ridiculous how long this took.
My love for the club's coming back. This is great. This is so much fun. The
great Neil Warnock. What you might also judge is how much I like these managers by the pictures I used.
It's a good one. Warnock.
I've done a few people do it here. Neil Warnock, higher or lower than 16.6%?
I'm gonna have to go with higher.
You sure? You're taking that?
I've got a hunch. It's higher than 16.6.
It is
41.
41%. So Neil left. We got Neil Harris. I do quite like him. It's just this picture made me laugh. I don't know why I did him dirty with this.
Yeah, he looks like a shark.
It does. Higher or lower?
I
lower,
think
but,
it's lower,
but a
not
good
by
lower,
much.
but a good lower. Yeah, yeah.
I think
You
he's
don't-
high end 30%. It's like 38, something like that.
38.7%. Spot on. Someone's been reading the Wikipedia page and they found out this quiz was happening.
I was
didn't look, I
asleep,
promise
so
you.
I can't. Yeah.
I didn't look.
So following from Neil Harris, there was Mick McCarthy.
Now this
So
is a deceptive one.
Yeah, because he
Yeah.
only lost 13 games in charge at Cardiff, and 8 of them came in that run where he. But he also drew a lot. There were a few draws. So I looked at his 38. I reckon it's
We started
slightly...
really well.
Then you win 6. It was like 6 or 7 on the bounce. Like really
Yeah, we had like a
strong start.
record breaking run at both ends with him, didn't we? That was the problem.
I want to say...
wa-
Oh, this is tough.
God, I'll leave it to you.
No, don't.
His voice broke in the panic in it.
I'm going to go ever so slightly lower. No.
So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, go with it. Go with the hunch.
Yes! Come on!
I wasn't sure then.
I wasn't sure either.
We then go on to the man that personality forgot, Steve Morrison.
Oh,
Lower.
he wasn't in charge for that long. Yeah, I think
We were shit. Lower.
I'll go with you then, Tom. Lower.
Go lower. This will surprise you. It is lower, but not by
Ooh,
much.
it's not-
Yeah, I
oh,
didn't
yeah,
think there was
okay,
much
fair
in
enough.
it.
After Steve, it is Mark Hudson, who was officially named a manager. I thought he was caretaker, but it was.
No, he was there ages. Yeah.
No, he got the gig.
Yep. So he counts. So
I think he's lower.
Yeah, agreed.
lower. It was 22.2%.
God, was it that bad? Poor
Bad.
bloke.
Yeah, he'd had a rough time, bless him.
Following on from Hudson, it was
Oh,
Sabri
this-
Lamouchi.
Because that was
Higher.
bad as well.
Higher.
All right, I'll go higher.
It's a long pod as it is. Higher.
33.
Whoa!
Third of his games.
He was only in charge for about 10, though, wasn't he, really?
Yeah. Don't take it away from him, all right? Following
I
from
like
that, it is the dearly departed Erol Bulut. Higher or lower than 33.3%.
I mean, this season it's going to skew things ever so slightly. I think slightly lower.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that.
You're going lower,
Yeah.
Oh, no, this is where we fuck it up, isn't it?
boys.
Oh, no!
Week's over. I thought you were going to do the whole thing.
36.2.
That
Much
sums up
like-
Bullet's tenure. Disappointing.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Much like Bullet's tenure, it's such a shame to see it end in that way. But that was
What a
Vincent Tan,
quiz.
play your card if City manager's right.
I
What a quiz.
forgot
If we
this
win
was. I forgot this was visual land for a second. I proper headbutt with the desk.
Good quiz. Tom, your turn to do a quiz next time.
Done. No problem.
Lovely stuff. Right, I mean, we could talk about Hull, but we're already almost well over an hour. Ben, any thoughts about Hull?
Grim place.
Yeah. Tom?
Best away I've ever done. So I've
Was
got
that the
no
Morrison one?
complaints. Yeah.
And the first game in charge of our glorious new leader, Omar Reza, Isa Giza. I wonder what team he'll put out. That's something to find out next week when we're back on The View from the Ninian. Thanks to everyone who's listened so far. Twitter.com/VFT Ninian. For all your tweets, you can find our link tree on there as well. That will give you all the details on how to give us money. KOFI.com/VFT Ninian. Go to our YouTube, youtube.com/VFT Ninian. Follow us on X. You can see the podcast posted there. You can find us on all good pod platforms. Ben, thanks for the quiz.
No worries. Pleasure, boys.
Tom, have a fun day because it's the morning where you are.
Yeah, thanks. Can't wait for a day of work after that.
And we'll be back next week after Hull. Ta-da!